Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would like to share with you some thoughts that I have with regard to a film from 1999, which is from Japan. It is one of those unbelievably one-of-a-kind works. When you watch it, you are never able to unwatch it. When you see it, you will never forget it. It is a roller coaster ride of a film in the best sense of that term, and so much more. This is from the Japanese filmmaker Takashi Miike, and as I say, it's from 1999, and the name of the film is Dead or Alive, Hanzaisha. And so without further ado, and if you'll pardon the indulgence, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. To engage in the cinema of Takashi Miike is to engage in a type of cinematic volatility, a world where there are no boundaries, and a place that is liberating, exciting, frightening, unexpected, and wholly organic, and also very much on the fly. And it is what it is. And what it indeed is something extraordinary. I think that is Miike. And he has shown us through so many films just the type of all over the place filmmaker he is. And bless him for that, because his voice is becoming, it's apparent now, it's one of the most important voices in modern Japanese cinema. And so bless him for being there and for making the films that he makes. And as I say, he makes so many films from many different genres, many different cloths, and many different varieties. In that mix, we have this film, or one of the films that's included in this particular Arrow set. This Arrow set is a trilogy of films, and I'm speaking of the first in such trilogy, Dead or Alive, Hanzaisha. This film stars Sho Aikawa and Riki Takeuchi, among others, and it is essentially a cops versus gang, good guys versus bad guys, and we have a cop, the Sho Aikawa character, on the trail of the Riki Takeuchi character and his gang and the various criminal acts they commit in the course of a plot that involves Yakuza, that involves other criminal syndicates from China and elsewhere. We have issues of drugs and murder, and also the bonds that are forged between gang members, and also very interestingly interwoven into the mix are issues and discussions of immigrants and immigration into Japan, in particular the relationship between mainland China and Japan in the context of this discussion of immigration, and how that further solidifies one's own sense of identity and self in Japan of the modern age, and in particular in the metropolis that is the place of Tokyo. And in many ways the beating heart of this almost nighttime life of Tokyo being expressed in Kabukicho, with the Shinjuku and that kind of thing. And so, and then on the other side of the coin, we have the police procedural, and the relationships that are forged between and among people on the force, and how it affects family relationships and dynamics, and how work drives all, sometimes at the consequence of driving wedges between and among family relationships and ties, and how that plays out. And then all the time we have this oozing sense of wonderfully overblown expressions of machismo and ultra cool in this hip, versatile world of Japanese cinema and what's known as V cinema, and the way in which this kind of genre cinema, these police thriller gangster films, play themselves out in the 90s and into the 2000s, and in the hands of this filmmaker Miike. So that is in essence what the film is about, right? It's about good guys versus bad guys. It's about cops and gangs. And then the confrontations between the main protagonist and the main antagonist, and when they will meet, and their final showdown. Okay, that is in essence what the film is about, I would say. But it is, as you know, for those who have seen the film, it is a one-of-a-kind experience that is, for lack of a better phrase, totally explosive. And it is very much a volatile, electrifying, kinetic mix of what I would like to call WTF cinema of the highest order. This is filmmaking. I remember when I first saw this film, and already it had a reputation about it, and so I was kind of expecting something to bear itself out upon my initial watch of the film. But what I ended up seeing was it completely exceeded any expectation that I could have ever had of this film going in, because what I ended up seeing was a masterwork of excess and cool and hip and flash editing, and also the varying mixes of pacing, and the way that Miike as a filmmaker is teasing us and is making us expect things of genre. And when we feel comfortable enough with his style and his pace, he then changes, he ups the ante, and he changes things on us. And so we are left wondering what to expect from this sudden change. And then when we finally feel settled in, bam, he goes and he changes it again on us. And that is great. I find, therefore, when I'm in this position of watching a film with Miike in the driver's seat, as it were, I have no idea where we're going to go, and I love that. I absolutely love that. And that is certainly the case for a film like Dead or Alive, DOA, Hanzaisha. If you know anything about the film, you'll know that it's probably very known, very famous, incredibly famous for its what's referred to as its opening montage, and then also for the way the film ends. And so I will be as very vague as possible, and I will just say that in both instances, this film is truly unforgettable. It is very unforgettable. And what is even more amazing about these explosive instances of cinematic high art made manifest in the almost free-for-all kinetic feeling of Miike is the fact that these instances of explosive cinema are indeed filled with purpose and meaning. There is really specific narrative function. For example, when we look at this opening explosive montage of the first few minutes of the film, it seems high-paced and very much just random shots that are ultra cool with music that is so cool. But it also is furthering the plot, because everything we see is actually going to be so significant in terms of what happens in the course of the film, and the gang structure and the dynamics and what is at stake and what is actually being stolen from whom and who is going to get what and how that plays itself out later. And then we see all this stuff happen. And when we see it happen, it, as I say, we're not quite sure what's going on, but when we think back, oh yes, it is so significant and so relevant. But at the same time, it is an explosion of art and excess in the great way that Miike presents information and style and cool to us in this world. It's a very tough world. It's a very violent world. It's very vicious. There are some moments in this film that are really almost stomach churning. And so it's certainly not for everyone, that's for sure. So be wary of this, my friends. But it is still, for those who are into this kind of cinema and the cinema of Miike, it is truly out of this world. And I would say also that in keeping with the discussion of certain themes that are I think at play in this film, there is a wonderful sense also where this film is talking in many ways about identity as linked to the state of Japanese society. It's also linked to the state, as I say, related to immigration and the notion of people who immigrated from China to Japan and how their identities are forged in this type of community and society, especially in Tokyo, and how that plays itself out in various strands of character development. And this is actually a very prescient or a very profoundly discussed issue, because it's something that I think is still very relevant to this very day. And so, and the issue of immigration and the issue of a kind of identity, cultural-based identity, I think is one that is very important, especially when living in modern Japanese society. So it discusses this issue in really interesting ways. And also there are elements of what I would call notions of consciousness of Japanese society in the 20th century, leading up to this moment of 1999. I would say that there are some very vivid images in terms of the so-called economic miracle of Japan in the late 20th century, how this leads to this notion of excess, how this leads to the notion of sort of capitalism versus loyalty. Also, there are notions of a wartime past in Japan, and also the way in which the image and the destructive power of the atomic bomb really is in many ways at the heart of what we know to be modern society of Japan up to this very day. And all these images, I think, and all these links are made, whether they be made directly or indirectly, whether they be made in very slow, methodical, paced ways, or whether they be made in very quick cut type of presentations. It's all there, I would argue, which is therefore to say that I think Miike in this film is speaking to this sense of Japanese identity and social consciousness that is very fascinating, especially when mixed in with the truly electrifying and volatile, in a positive way, volatile nature of his cinematic craftsmanship that is at play in full force in this film, Dead or Alive, Hanzaisha from 1999. It is one of those great films. And I remember, too, just getting this thrill I get this thrill whenever I am in the Shinjuku area. And sometimes I might see the entranceway to Kabukicho, which is still there. And I know the area, and I know the street. And I always think, oh, this is where that scene in Dead or Alive happens. And wow, this is so cool. And I'm right here. And it still feels that way. And the lights flashing and that sort of thing, and the people that are walking in and out, and the real mix of cultures that is going on the street level here. Everything that we see expressed in Dead or Alive is still there, present in Japan, and so I get this real kick and thrill when I see this film, and when I am out and about in the city. And experiencing the places that are lived in, and part of the experience when watching this film, and the tapestry of the landscape when watching this film. It makes me feel very proud in many ways in terms of cinema of Japan, and how it seems to be achieving so much through many different means and through many different voices of cinema. One of those being the undeniably significant and oh so important voice of Takashi Miike, as we see it in, as I say, many, 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 many films, including this one from 1999, Dead or Alive, Hanzaisha. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. Stay strong, stay safe. Warmest regards to all of you, and cheers.